And for the young builders who are like, yes, we have like X side of things for blockchains, but how did you think back then, like how the world of journalism and the world of blockchain can come together? So what would your idea be for the young people or the people who are upcoming to think about the processes that can be deployed using blockchain?
We are live from Alep Club during the Dev Connect week. In this week, we'll be hosting a series of podcasts from people who are attending Dev Connect, who are in Buenos Aires, contributing to crypto, contributing to the acceleration of the space. We'll be talking with many folks from EF. I think Devansh is now one of the key members of EF, working on a very innovative side of things. I'm sure which many of you will be hearing for the first time. I know Devansh from 2 years now. I think initially when he was building his own product, which we'll be talking in after some time. And also think you were doing some things with Arbitrum, right? With grants and all, you made in Founder House and everything. So I think it's been quite a long way. Just thanks Devansh for doing it. I think you have a busy week. You went there, sit in Patagonia, coming here. Really appreciate that you're taking out this time and talking with us.
Yeah, happy to do that. Yeah.
Awesome. I think Devansh, you have a very powerful Twitter crowd. You're quite well-known in city and mainly impact spaces of crypto and all. If you want to introduce yourself to the wider city audience, like who you are, what you're doing, your journey in a very few words will be really great.
Yeah. So I started as a journalist and wrote many articles. Was spending time in the Central India region where there's a civil war going on. And from there, I realized the lack of a business model for good journalism. It was all based on eyeballs that you get money in ad revenue. So it started as a quest of how can journalism which produces an impact, how can we fund such journalism? And one of the solutions, and this is how I entered crypto in 2021. I started in journalism in like 2015, where I started my own magazine, and the principal banned it, and I took him to the courts in Delhi High Court. I filed a lawsuit and I won the case. So that was like my first experience in 2015. Then I went to the Columbia Journalism School in New York. I learned investigative reporting there, which I was part of something of the Panama Papers investigation, which resulted in a lot of money being returned to taxpayers. And it really began as a quest that this sort of journalism which has quantifiable impact, how can we actually get a good revenue model for that? And eventually in 2021, the NFT boom was happening in the crypto world, and there's when I had that initial thought of if we can uniquely record the impact of a journalism story, saying that this story got published and this CEO resigned, and someone can buy that impact as an NFT, then the outlet will have money for its next story. And then again, that produces impact. And again, someone buys it and the next story. So we can actually solve this issue of create impact once and try selling it multiple times, because every impact can only be sold one time because it has a unique representation on a blockchain. So based on that initial idea, I went ahead, we built out a product, and it took about like 3-4 years to build out the full version of the product because working with smart contracts is hard. But then we finally ended up building the product and demoing it, and yeah, I can go on about.
Yeah. I think it will be very interesting to say about how you build a product which now known as VoiceDeck DAO, and how you end up being a Ethereum fellow, and how the entire how they have supported and what's the status of the product. I think it has also been tied to you working with EF. I think we can talk that in some time. But we'd like to know about how VoiceDeck DAO happened, how the connection with Ethereum came into place, and what's the current status of the product.
Yeah, sure. So this was in 2021, and then in 22 we got funding from various quadratic funding rounds. So this is Dora hacks, Gitcoin rounds. So we managed to raise the initial money to bring journalism impact on-chain. We managed to get it from those funding rounds. So sometime around 2023, I got selected as a next billion fellow at Ethereum Foundation. And that was like one of the big unlocks. I would say there are 3 very impactful experiences I've had which helped this journey of idea to execution. One was getting money in the Gitcoin round. And that was very impactful because it got me a community on Twitter, and that's what matters a lot in this space, like having a community of people who engage with your content. So being part of the Gitcoin round gave me not just money, but also like a community which I could engage with and comment on each other's posts and part of that full refi community. So that was the first impactful experience. The second was the Next Billion Fellowship, where they look for people who are on a quest to show how Ethereum can be used in the wider world. And so when they saw that I had been working on this for a long time, I had a past even before crypto, I was working in journalism in the same industry. That eventually got me selected. And what's very cool is that they don't give you money directly. They see what support you need and make that available. So they saw that I needed a team of like smart contract developers, a product manager, a marketing person. So they provided their entire team for the duration of the 6-month fellowship. So that actually helped us take it from 0 to 1, then the fellowship. And then the third impactful experience was the Funding the Commons residency in Chiang Mai last year. So like before DEF CON, there was like a full pop-up movement, which was very vibrant in Chiang Mai. And I was part of a residency called Funding the Commons, where we managed to launch the product, get feedback on it from various people, including Vitalik, who saw the product and had a lot of critical ideas on it. And then that eventually led me to joining the Ethereum Foundation as well. So
Awesome. I think if you can mention in very simple terms, just under a minute, what is VoiceDeck DAO and what are the 3 problems it solves currently?
yeah, so VoiceDeck is a way of bringing impact on chain. And the problem it mainly solves is that right now, as like my optimal strategy as a non-profit is create impact one time and then sell it to as many funders as you can. So if you want to maximize revenue as a non-profit today, you should have a 5x marketing budget and a 1x impact creation budget, because you can create impact one time, sell it to as many funders as you can, and each of them will give you money for the same impact. But when you bring the impact on chain, the funder has to buy that impact and you now have to create your next impact. So it makes the scales less in favor of marketing and more in favor of impact creation. So that's kind of in a broad what we are solving, like trying to rebalance the scales between impact creation and impact marketing, because right now marketing is way more important than actually doing the work.
Any ideas you have crafted or thinking towards how we are working towards GTM of VoiceDeck, maybe a region, or maybe how we'll be reaching these journalists, or who will be the first initial customers of the product? Anything?
Yeah, so we are actually heading right after DEF CON this year. We are heading to a journalism conference in Chiang Mai to try and present it to the journalists there and get their feedback. So in terms of GTM, we've seen a couple of things just from attending a lot of conferences where media funders are there, where journalism funders congregate. One is that at the end of every financial year, they have a lot of unspent money, which they haven't been able to negotiate enough grant agreements with.
Is it fund managers who fund media?
Yeah, right.
Okay.
So fund managers who fund media have unspent money at the end of the year. So we can say that, hey, if you have unspent money, here are all of these impacts that you can buy and support the journalists. And the accountability is already baked in because they produced impact which you are buying, and they will produce the next impact with the money which you can again see next year. So then that accountability is also baked in. So that was one go-to-market for media funders. And then for regular consumers, another go-to-market was marriages, where a lot of people say that no gifts, blessings only, but no one likes to go empty-handed. So we let people buy these impact certificates and wish the couple like happiness for their marriage or for their birthday or their baby shower. So that's the other go-to-market that we're trying on the consumer front. And then on the third is with the organizations themselves, they have fundraising campaigns. So in their email, end of your email, they'll send an email saying, you can either donate to us directly or you can also buy our impact, which is direct. It's like a product basically. So think of it as most donations or grant agreements are service contracts, like how I pay McKinsey in order to provide a consulting report. That's what I do currently when I donate. But what we want is the process of buying an impact should be like buying a t-shirt. That's similar to how I give money and I get a t-shirt. I should be able to give money and receive whatever impact was produced with it. So that's maybe
what kind of return of impacts organization can get, because let's say donation, maybe many people can treat, okay, I have enough or I resonate with something, right? And then I will donate. Like just an example which you were giving before us, started recording this. That is, solidarity is a very important language, but normally it's not a VC investable thing because programming languages can't give you that return, and most languages are open source. But solidarity is as important as maybe building a product like Lido, right? So what are the things, you are seeing that, or maybe you have ideas towards or working towards, that will make funding this project sustainable? Because projects like Solidity and other initiatives which you mentioned needs funding. At the same time, us as a donator might get some return, or if I'm not craving for return as a donation, some other, thing I might get. How are you solving this problem or trying to approach this kind of situation?
Yeah, so I think like a lot of people with money who want to donate to causes don't want to get into the specifics of how much money should I give to Solidity, how much should I give to Viper, how much should I give to this other language, because there's reputational risk. What if I give more money to one project and less to another? Then everyone blames me as the rich person giving money. So what a lot of these people want is just send us one public key which we give money to, and then some other mechanism divides the money between the projects. That's what a lot of people have asked for.
Do they expect anything like how this big donators mindset work? Do they, like, let's say I'm an investor, I'll expect 100x return or 50x return.
Yeah.
How this donators mindset work? Do they
Yeah.
come in the mindset of charity, or do they just want to donate?
Yeah, so that depends on the person who's donating. Some donators will want publicity, so in order to do it, they want to be publicized. Some people, if you look at the ETF funds, they all have to give disclosures to the SEC. And one of the risks which they mention in the disclosures is that we are built on open source repositories, and if they don't get funded, then Ethereum can go down in value because you're not funding Solidity. So they have to show the SEC what they are doing to address the risks. So then we tell them that, hey, by funding these projects, you can tell the SEC that this is how we are addressing the risk. So for them, what matters is their legal disclosures, that these are the risks which our shareholders are taking on, and this is how we are solving those risks. So that's another incentive. And then when we look at individuals, they just don't want to be bothered. A lot of rich people don't like being bothered. They just want to give money, and that's the end of the story. So I think there's different profiles for different types of funders.
Okay, I understand the supply, demand side of things. How are you solving the supply side of things? Maybe how are you convincing somebody that, hey, come and invest on this platform?
Yeah.
Or maybe, okay, there might be a handful of folks who are aware of crypto way of giving money, but there is this entire HNIs or maybe big corporate funds who have the corpus of giving money to non-for-profits. Are you targeting that? Or if that is the market, maybe how we will convince them, there's a better way to distribute funding, mechanisms like quadratic funding and all.
Right.
Yeah, so how are you seeing those things?
Yeah, so right now we have to still figure out the good mechanisms which people can use and donate via. And we don't say either or, it's not like you either do your central grant making or you do funding mechanisms. Funding mechanisms are very broadly like how Netflix has an algorithm which shows you what movie to watch. We need to make an algorithm which gives you a rough draft of who should get how much money. So you don't start from zero. So that's basically a fancy way. Funding mechanisms is the fancy word, but basically just an algorithm showing or suggesting how much each one should get paid. And this is useful. My current framing is connecting revenue centers and cost centers. So for something like Google, Google's AI division is not directly earning money. The ad division is earning money. So in the corporate parlance, the ad division is a revenue center because it's earning revenue, and the AI division is a cost center because it's taking costs. But still, it's making Google more valuable. Now in Web3, and so what happens is that the CEO takes money from the cost center and gives it to he takes money from the revenue center and gives it to the cost center. But in Web3, we basically have the AI division asking for a grant from the ad division. Just imagine if Google's AI division had to apply for a grant to the Google ad division. But that's the situation we are in Web3. So actually better integrating your dependencies. Lido is a revenue center, Solidity is a cost center. But how can we integrate them so that Solidity doesn't have to ask for a grant, but still gets enough funding to make the entire project work?
I think one thing which you mentioned is about the, you working towards funding media projects. So there's a new crypto project or maybe a new crypto-centric media project up there. Will the mechanism we are building towards can help them fund? Or maybe if they fund, why maybe they will want to fund, another media project where there is host of crypto information available only on CT and other places? What's the situation there?
What is the question
The
again?
question is like, will the mechanism which you are talking about or building towards will also fund crypto-centric media projects?
Yeah.
Is it a mechanism towards that, or is
Which mechanism? VoiceDeck or the one at EF?
no maybe EF? I think we haven't gone into EF, but let's say we have VoiceDeck, or maybe things you are working within VoiceDeck and beyond. Because you were mentioning, right, after the end of each financial year, media funders have a budget to fund media companies, or people working in media. Is there a way that crypto media projects will get funded? Let's say bank, let's say Roll-Up, if they want to raise funding, or let's say a new media company like maybe like us, we want to raise some funding. Can we get benefit, or can they get benefited? Is there a way of
Yeah, so a lot of it is like at least with VoiceDeck, what we've built is specific to journalism that produces outcomes. So it's not journalism that produces awareness. So I would draw that basic distinction. So an outcome example might be that because of this interview, someone comes and joins the crypto space. But that's obviously hard to track. So we look at more concrete examples, like a journalist reported that the road was broken in an area and then the road got repaired by the government. So that's like an example of an outcome which we can make into a product which is on-chain, uniquely represented on-chain that people can buy. So I would say that's the basic distinction.
awesome?
Yeah.
I think coming to your EF sort of experiences,
Yeah.
right? Like, we talked in vivid about, what you're doing in VoiceDeck and your experience. If we touch base on your EF thing, I think you mentioned, right, that you building VoiceDeck and then getting noticed by Vitalik kind of landed you this position in EF. And, what are your current responsibilities at EF? Which particular team you're working? Talk to you a little bit about that.
No, so it's more like Vitalik saw our attempts to use AI to quantify the impact of each report, saying that this report is worth this much, this other report is worth that much. And he felt that this was the completely wrong approach, that asking one AI to decide how impactful something is a world where we have to pray for the AI to give us good marks. So Vitalik instead wanted a situation where many people can submit their own agents or their own AI models, and then we have some method of selecting the most aligned AI. So the broad idea would be that humans are good at making decisions, but we can only make a few decisions. AI is good at making many decisions, but we don't know if they're aligned with us or not. So we take humans who make a few decisions and use that to select the AI, which then makes many decisions. So that's the broad understanding, and that's what even made us pivot from VoiceDeck, that we don't want to just build this one amazing AI which is going to figure out how impactful something is, but we want to set up a competition where anyone can predict how impactful something is, and we have humans who make some judgments, which chooses the AI that makes many judgments. So that's in the broad gist what I'm working on at the EF, and applying it more specifically to open source repositories that support Ethereum, like Solidity or Viper or others.
I think beyond VoiceDeck, which are the other maybe projects, ecosystems, or initiatives you are actually working? If you can talk something about that, like as you mentioned, you vividly mentioned about things with VoiceDeck, and like that must there might be some other projects as you mentioned, Solidity and maybe Viper and other things. What are the top 3 initiatives you are working on a very close basis with EF, if you can say something?
Yeah, so the main project is basically called Deep Funding, and in Deep Funding we have 4 sets of stakeholders. So the first, 2 of them are active and 2 are passive. So the first set of stakeholders is the AI model builders. So we have a lot of excitement in the AI community to actually participate in predicting how important one repository is versus another. So that's the first set of stakeholders, people who are good at building AI models. Then the second step is, how do we know which AI model builders are good and which are bad? So that's where we have expert evaluators. So the expert evaluators will say that this repo is more important than another. And then based on that, we can have a leaderboard of AI builders. Like this leaderboard, this person has an error score of 5 compared to this other second model which has an error score of 4, based on how close they are to the expert evaluators' opinions. So those are the 2 active communities, expert evaluators and model builders. Then we have the passive community, which is the projects or the GitHub repos, which are receiving the funding. So they don't have to do anything as such. They have to just make sure that their repo is considered for funding. And then the fourth one is the funders. They have to just put money into one public key, and that gets distributed to the repos based on the model builders' predictions and the winning model.
Awesome. I think super thanks Devansh for all the information. Just one last question before we part. If you want to ask one last thing, my last question will be that we all love EF. I think because of EF, all these things are possible and everything. What is your current most the hash one thing in EF which makes you excited to walk towards?
Yeah.
One would like to know that.
Yeah, first of all, I'll say that all of this does not exist because of the EF. This all exists because of the Ethereum community, of which the EF is one small part of it. There are so many others like Consensus and Lido and Aave. I think that's what Ethereum's strength is, that we have so many pillars even just beyond the EF. And that's the whole philosophy of subtraction, which Aya has been espousing. And that's what's made Ethereum so strong, that we have not taken a central position in the ecosystem. So I really hope that remains the way it is. We have seen some major changes coming this year. Earlier, the EF was more focused on just technical development of the protocol, but now we've seen a major reorganization happen in terms of ecosystem development, which is led by James Smith. And as part of that, we've had founder success, we've had app relations, and we've had a bunch of exciting new teams, including DeFi use cases. So I think in general, it's exciting to now see the EF engage with not just the technical layer, but also the social layer. And I guess we'll have to see what strategy that the management comes up with there.
Awesome. I think Bart, if you have one question to ask.
So we were talking more in terms of impact. So I just wanted to know what does impact mean to you?
Yeah, so impact is basically that the difference between value creation and value capture. So some projects create a lot of value, like Solidity is an example which has created so much value for all of Ethereum, but they're not able to capture any of that value. They don't actually get revenue. They have to keep asking for grants. So for me, impact is a very mathematical definition of value creation minus value capture.
Got it. And do you think the impact depends different for every perspective that we have, and how do we take it to a level terms where everyone can be on the same page?
How do we?
How do we agree on a similar space? Because impact is different for everyone, right? So how do we quantify impact specifically?
Yeah, so I think that's where I draw the distinction between credit assignment versus funding loops. So credit assignment is just who was responsible for how much of the success. So in the case of Lido, how much was Lido team success were responsible for it? How much was Solidity responsible for building the infrastructure on which Lido is now built? How much was Go Ethereum responsible for the execution client that Lido is now depending on for getting transactions to run? So it's what I call the credit assignment problem. And I think the main part is deciding on a process. Even though Donald Trump got elected as president, it's not I reject the process of elections because I didn't like the outcome. It's more okay, this was the process we developed and this was the outcome that was produced. So I think we need a similar thing. Vitalik has written about this in Funding Mechanisms, Credibly Neutral Funding, which I urge people to check out his blog post on it. But it's basically how do we get a legitimate process and then that outcome happens as a basis of that process.
Got it. And for the young builders who are yes, we have tech side of things for blockchains, but how did you think back then how the world of journalism and the world of blockchain can come together? So what would your idea be for the young people or the people who are upcoming to think about the processes that can be deployed using blockchains?
Yeah, so a lot of it is separating the back end and the front end. So if you look at regular Web 2 app development, the front end and the back end are joined together. That, I am building the front end and I am the only one with access to my back end. But what blockchain allows you to do is create a back end which is accessible to anyone. So anyone can build a front end from your back end. So that's what Web3 really is. And that's what I would tell young people, that if you want to make anyone can build a front end on top of your back end infrastructure, then use blockchain. But if you want a proprietary model where only you have access to your backend database, then you should stick to Web 2.
Got it. And starting out, how did you think about blockchains and how the perception has changed over the years?
So I've thought of blockchain more as a decentralized database, a database where anyone can pay money to add an entry to the database. So just think of it as like a SQL table, which we all know, and anyone can put some money and add an entry to the SQL table. And you can build many use cases on top of this that is there. And I think now people are more excited about stable coins. So stable coins are an example of a SQL database where you can pay money and you can send money from one entry to another and change that database. So I think now a lot of the focus is on legal protections for on-chain assets. Like how can we interface between the formal legal system and the on-chain system that we've built.
Got it. And last question would be any sector that you think that we haven't touched upon and you think blockchains or Ethereum can be like play a very important part and we have like touched upon it yet?
Yes, I think the identity system is like a very important trend that we are seeing. So identity is like another exciting use case that you can kind of like, if you look at the Bhutan government, like very close by to India, like they've launched their identity system on Ethereum. And there's many useful applications to that, which is, so in India, which is Aadhaar system, if a company wants to know that I'm above 18 years old, I have to give them my identity. And we've seen Aadhaar already get hacked and like many other bad things happen. Whereas with Bhutan, if it's a government, they already have access to the ID system because it's a government system. But if a business wants my ID, they can just query Ethereum and verify that I'm above 18 years old or that I live in this district and I have the right to vote. So I think it's much more privacy preserving and we are seeing privacy emerge as a major theme. So I think that's the use case that I'm kind of excited about now, especially since you're seeing a full government launch its identity system on Ethereum.
Got it. And anything you are looking forward for the DevCon week? And
yeah, I think like DevConnect is it's like a world fair, and that's what's like super exciting this year about it. That there's an AI district, there's a privacy district, there's an app district. So I think like it's like a taste of what the world will look like if it all comes on chain, and I think that's what I'm excited about this year.
Perfect. I think thanks for having us, Devansh.
Yep, anytime.